on volume 4 of Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, and this is chapter 2 of volume 4. It's entitled London, A Dream Fulfilled. London, September 11th, 1969. With the cooperation of Apple Records and Lufthansa German Airlines, the devotees arranged a reception for Prabhupada at London's Heathrow Airport. As soon as Prabhupada descended the stairs of the airplane, he was escorted to a car and driven to a VIP lounge, bypassing the formalities of immigration and customs. As Prabhupada stepped from the car, the devotees ran out of the terminal and offered obeisances on the wet pavement, while Srila Prabhupada looked down on them smiling. The devotees rose, brushing wet macadam from their dhotis and saris, and joyfully surrounded Prabhupada as he entered the lounge. So this is a photo from the book, from volume 4, of when the devotees offered their obeisances right in the gravel and the asphalt right at the Heathrow Airport when Prabhupada entered. So September 11th, that's 9/11. That's what it's called in English. It's 9/11 is an emergency number, and it's also a spiritual number. So just so happened on this day, 9/11, 1969, this was the time that Prabhupada arrived in London from Germany. He was coming from Germany because he first went to see his disciple Shivananda, who had started a temple single-handedly in Germany, in Hamburg. So that's why Lufthansa German Airlines was involved in this, because they arranged that Prabhupada get this VIP treatment as soon as he arrived at Heathrow Airport, the VIP lounge. So all the devotees had to rush to the lounge and meet Prabhupada there. So they were brushing the macadam from their dhotis. Here in India, we don't know the word macadam. It's when you have roti, zero-inch roti, and it's mixed with the bitumen, and that's what they cover the roads with. So the devotees didn't care where they were. As soon as they saw Prabhupada, they were so happy to see him. They just fell to the ground. They got it all over their saris and dhotis. It didn't matter at all. Aage wali nahi aa rahe. Page down. No. Acha. Inside the terminal, Prabhupada confronted a mass of reporters and cameramen and several dozen friends of the devotees. A clean cloth covered one of the lounge sofas, and vases with yellow gladiolas sat on either side. Prabhupada walked over to the sofa and sat down, and Shamasundar garlanded him with red and white carnations. Prabhupada began leading kirtan. The devotees were oblivious to all but Prabhupada, and the reporters resigned themselves to simply standing and observing while the devotees sang and danced ecstatically. The eager devotees were unabashed during the kirtan, and their shouts of Hari Bol and Jai Prabhupada, as well as blasts from a conch shell, punctuated the regular chanting of Hare Krishna. So originally we've heard from the previous chapter that Prabhupada had sent 6 of his disciples to London. 3 Grihastha couples, Shamasundar Malati, Mukunda and Janaki, and Guru Das and Jamuna. Now, after so many months being there, struggling, sometimes having a place to stay, sometimes having to stay in different places, they were ready for Prabhupada to come to London. And they had made devotees by that time. And Prabhupada, knowing that just the 6 of them would not be enough to tackle all of England, he was sending devotees. And we'll find out which devotees he chose to send as we read on. About 30 devotees were regularly attending our meetings or were living with us. This is a excerpt from Guru Das's book entitled By His Example. Most were young British boys and girls, but London being an international hub, some devotees came from France, some came from America, veterans of the Vietnam War, and another came from Armenia. Germans, Indians, even Arabians came and took part in our devotional activities. So because London was an international hub, devotees who might have never seen the Hare Krishna devotees in their country, because they were in London, they got the opportunity to meet the devotees and see Srila Prabhupada, associate with him for the first time he came. And some of these devotees became very, very influential later in the movement. For instance, the devotee from Armenia, we'll hear about him later. And the devotee from Arabia also, they became very great preachers in ISKCON. After the kirtan, the reporters remained at a distance as Prabhupada spoke affectionately to almost each devotee seated before him. "Where is Janaki?" he asked. "Oh, yes. How are you?" So Janaki was the first female disciple of Srila Prabhupada, initiated in September 1966. Now it's 1969. So Janaki and her husband Mukunda, they went to San Francisco. They opened the temple there. Now Prabhupada has sent them to London. They've successfully started Krishna consciousness in London as well. "Oh yes, how are you?" "Bibhavati, how is your daughter?" So Bibhavati and Ishan, they were two disciples that were in Canada, in Montreal. And when George Harrison, one of the Beatles, went to Canada, Bibhavati had an interview with George Harrison. And because George Harrison, by this time, was becoming very affectionate to the devotees and helping them in many ways, Prabhupada decided to send Ishan and Bibhavati and their little daughter to London to help them. You'll see Bibhavati there in the glasses, right there. That's Ishan, that's Hanuman, another devotee that was sent from South America. "Actually, you are all my fathers and mothers. You are taking such care. For the devotees, only they and Prabhupada were present in the lounge, and they strained to catch everything he did or said. They couldn't have cared less about any outsider's reaction." Finally, Mukunda invited the reporters to come forward. "If any of you gentlemen have any questions, you can ask them of Prabhupada." They had many questions. We'll hear them. So this is another excerpt under the picture from Guru Das. The chairs were arranged in a circle with Srila Prabhupada seated at the head. The media asked the usual questions about the meaning of tilak markings, etc. Then they asked Prabhupada why he rode in a huge Rolls-Royce limo. Prabhupada hadn't yet been in the limo. He hadn't gotten out of the airport yet. But John Lennon sent his Rolls-Royce limousine to pick up Prabhupada and bring him to his estate. So they all saw the Rolls-Royce outside of the airport. Prabhupada answered, "I am God's servant. What he gives me for his service, I will accept." This question came up again and again wherever Prabhupada went. I was just hearing Melbourne. When Prabhupada went to Melbourne, the reporters asked the same question. "Why do you need a Rolls Royce?" Prabhupada said, "We can walk." But whatever Krishna gives us, we'll use in his service. So why shouldn't I sit in a Rolls Royce? What he gives me for his service, I will accept. The reporters moving in. What do you think of this reception? Prabhupada: I am not very much fond of reception. I want to know how people give reception to this movement. That is my concern. So Prabhupada was not putting himself forward at all. He didn't arrange the reception. He was just coming on the airplane, and the devotees, out of their love, they arranged such a beautiful reception for Prabhupada with the help of the airport and the airlines. Devotees in unison. Haribol. Reporter: is this a very special welcome for you? Or is this a performance you go through each day? Prabhupada: no, wherever I go, I have got my disciples. In Western countries, I have got now about 20 centers, especially in America. So the American boys are very enthusiastic. I think in Los Angeles and San Francisco, I got a very great reception. In the Rath Yatra festival, about 10,000 boys and girls followed me for 7 miles. Devotees, Haribol. So we have to remember, this was not the first time Prabhupada came to London. He had come also when he fell ill with his stroke, and he wanted to go back to India in 1967 for Ayurvedic treatment in May. He also stopped off in London, just as a transit. He didn't go out, he didn't try to do any preaching. But previously, 1937, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had sent his disciples with a whole different take on how they should preach in London. So they were able to open a center, but maybe 1, 2, 3 persons were initiated at that time. Now Srila Prabhupada has come. His disciples have implanted Krishna consciousness, and we'll see the wonderful service that they've done in spreading Krishna consciousness in England. Sun reporter. The Sun is one of the leading newspapers in London. What do you try to teach, sir? Prabhupada: I am trying to teach what you have forgotten. Devotees laughing. Haribol, Hare Krishna. Sun reporter. Which is what? Prabhupada: that is God. Some of you are saying there is no God. Some of you are saying God is dead. And some of you are saying God is impersonal or void. These are all nonsense. I want to teach all the nonsense people that there is God. That is my mission. Any nonsense can come to me. I shall prove that there is God. So England, they had a church, the Church of England. They were in the middle of a huge, spanning centuries, a huge battle between Ireland and England. They had their churches, the Catholic Church, the Protestant Church, Church of England. There were all types of religious factions in England. Prabhupada was not interested in factions. Prabhupada knew he came to teach God is one. Simply follow your religious principles, and then that is service to God. It doesn't matter. He didn't come to, to convert. This was not a Hindu religion. He came to simply remind people that God exists, and any nonsense who came to him, he would prove that God is still present. That is my Krishna consciousness movement. It is a challenge to the atheistic people. There is God. This is God. As we are sitting here face to face, you can see God face to face if you are sincere and if you are serious. That is possible. Unfortunately, you are trying to forget God. Therefore, you are embracing so many miseries of life. So I am simply preaching that you become Krishna conscious and be happy. Don't be swayed by these nonsense waves of Maya or illusion. So Srila Prabhupada was speaking to the reporters. There were many newspaper reporters who came to interview Prabhupada that day. So this was the first question that they asked. Why have you come here? And Prabhupada immediately, just right then and there in the airport lounge, started to preach about Krishna. When a reporter asked if the singing was essential to the sustenance of your faith, Prabhupada answered at length, describing the cleansing effect of chanting Hare Krishna. He quoted Srimad Bhagavatam's declaration that anyone without God consciousness has no good qualities. Test any of our students, Prabhupada said, how they are good, how they are advanced. Test it. Bring anyone in the world and compare with any one of our boys. You will find how much difference there is in their character and their feeling and their consciousness. If you want a peaceful society, then you must make people God conscious, Krishna conscious. Everything will be automatically resolved. Otherwise, your so-called United Nations will not help. So Prabhupada was a simple question about singing. Is singing essential? Prabhupada just took the opportunity immediately to preach. And then, of course, this is the quote that Prabhupada, this is the sloka where Prabhupada was referring to. All the demigods and their exalted qualities, such as religion, knowledge, and renunciation, become manifest in the body of one who has developed unalloyed devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. On the other hand, a person devoid of devotional service and engaged in material activities has no good qualities. Even if he is adept at the practice of mystic yoga or the honest endeavor of maintaining his family and relatives, he must be driven by his own mental speculations. Manoratena asati. That's the translation, that he's driven by his own mental speculations and must engage in the service of the Lord's external energy. How can there be any good qualities in such a man? Now, by this time in London, even before Srila Prabhupada arrived, the Hare Krishna mantra was the top of the pops because the Beatles, they cut a record. We'll see that record later. And the record was selling 50,000 copies in a day, 70,000 copies in a day. And the record sold more copies than even the Beatles' single records, because it was something new and everyone knew the Beatles were interested in it. So everybody bought that Hare Krishna record, the 45 RPM. In those days, there were no computers. These vinyl records they used to play. So it was already all over London. It was all over Europe. It was in Japan. It was in Czechoslovakia. It was all over the place by this time. So the singing, that's why the reporter asked the question, is the singing important? Because everyone heard that song on the telly, on the radios, everywhere. It was Hare Krishna by that time. The reporters asked about Billy Graham, the moon landing, the war in Ireland, and the whereabouts of Prabhupada's wife and children. They asked him to turn his head toward them, and they clicked away with their cameras. They thanked him, and the reception dispersed. So this is a real picture of that time. These are the reporters taking Prabhupada's picture. Reporter: Mr. Billy Graham makes people God conscious in a different way. Can you tell me what you think of him? This is Prabhupada's classic response when you ask about another spiritual leader. I do not know what is Billy Graham, but I am following the Vedic principle, Bhagavad-Gita, as it is. So Billy Graham at that time He was a Southern Baptist preacher from America, from the Carolinas, who was preaching Christianity, Protestant Christianity, Baptist, not the Catholic Church, it was Protestant. And he was such a powerful preacher at this time, in the 60s. He would fill up full stadiums of people and talk about Jesus Christ to them. There was a great revival of Christianity by Billy Graham's preaching all over the world. And that's exactly what Prabhupada was doing. So they asked, what's the difference between what you're doing and what Billy Graham is doing? So Prabhupada he might have known, he may not have known, but whenever someone asked, what do you think of Ramakrishna? What do you think of Shiva? Whatever, whoever it is, he would say, I don't know what is Billy Graham. What is his teachings? So Prabhupada immediately said, our teachings are based on the Vedic principles. So he clarified. Krishna says, Sarva dharmam parityajya, mam ekam sharanam braja. Bhagavad-Gita 1866. God says that you give up all nonsense occupation. Simply surrender unto me, and I take charge of you and give you protection. This is our philosophy. So he didn't get into haggling about we are the different and nothing. Just immediately gave Sarva dharmam parityajya. Reporter, can I ask you some questions about your general attitudes on things going on around us? For instance, what do you feel about man going to the moon? Another controversial topic. Prabhupada, this is simply a waste of time. I already commented on this when I was in San Francisco. The reporters asked me this very question. I flatly replied that it is simply waste of time and money. That's all. This is all the Prabhupada had to say about man on the moon. And Prabhupada, as a matter of fact, his personal servant, when they claimed that the astronauts reached the moon and they put the flag, and they put the flag on the moon, whatever that meant, and they picked up some dust and brought it back. And when Prabhupada explained that it was impossible for them to reach the moon, they weren't qualified, his personal servant doubted what Srila Prabhupada said. And that doubt became a very deep impression in his heart. And eventually, he left Srila Prabhupada's service because he didn't believe what Prabhupada was saying about the men going to the moon. Later, it was revealed in different conspiracies and things like that, that it might have been possible that the men didn't actually go to the moon. But Prabhupada didn't even discuss that. He simply said it's a waste of time and money. Reporter, what about something very much nearer to ourselves here in this country? And that is a war or civil disturbance is going on. Prabhupada, well, war is going on. Reporter, between Christians? Prabhupada, no, we are not Christian, nor Hindu, nor Muslim. We are God's servant, that's all. Anyone who is God's servant, there is no disagreement. And when one is Maya's servant, servant of Maya, illusion, there is disagreement. So it doesn't matter. Our test is Savai Pungsham Paro Dharmo Yato Bhaktir Adhokshaje. Srimad Bhagavatam 126. That system of religion is first class, which teaches how to love God. That's all. Okay. That's all. It doesn't matter whether it is Christian religion, Mohammedan religion, or Hindu religion. We shall see. If the follower of the religion has learned how to love God, then his religion is perfect. Otherwise, it is useless. So, what was going on was a lot of terrorist attacks. Can you turn that down a little bit? There, there. England had taken over part of Ireland, and the Irish were Protestants. No, the Irish were Catholics, Irish Catholics. And the Englishmen were Protestants. They made their own Church of England. They broke away from Catholicism. And it was supposed to be a religious war between the Protestants and the Catholics, whatever it was, but it was political. So that was, and a lot of terrorism was going on at that time, bombing, murders, infiltration of the land, things like that. And it wasn't just a new thing, it had been going on for hundreds of years between the two places. So, but Prabhupada's answer was the same, that in Sanskrit, Savai Pungsham Paro Dharmo Yato Bhaktir Arhokshaje. That system of religion is first class, which teaches how to love God. So if both sides are loving God, there'd be no reason to have any wars. So that was he said, war is going on, but if they're both loving God, there's no reason for war, there's no disagreement. So then they wanted to learn some personal things about Srila Prabhupada. Reporter, I should just like to know how old you are. Prabhupada, I am 74 years old. I was born in 1896 in India, Calcutta. Are you married, sir? Yes, I've got my sons, grandsons, my wife, all living, but I have no connection with them. I am a sannyasi, renounced order. I have got elderly sons. You say you have no connection with your family? No. Why? Because I've taken sannyas. I've dedicated my life for Krishna. That is the Vedic system, that certain portion of your life should simply dedicate for God. That is called sannyas. To do this, did you have to divorce? No, there's no question of. We do not know what is divorce. In our country, there is no divorce, at least in Hindu law. Yes, wife and husband once combined, that is for life. There is no question of separation in all circumstances, either in distress or in happiness. There is no question of separation. Now, our modern politicians, they have introduced this divorce law. Otherwise, according to Hindu Manu Samhita, there is no divorce law. When did you renounce your family? In 1959. How are they managing without you? They are managing. My sons are grown up. They are earning. My wife is also a rich man's daughter. She has got some property, so they have no problem. Do you ever see them at all? No, I cannot see. I cannot see at least my wife. But if my sons and daughters come to see me, they can see. But my wife cannot see me. That is stopped. That is the system of sannyas. A sannyasi cannot meet his wife again. That is renouncement. Renouncement means renouncing connection with woman or renouncing sex life. That is renouncement. So these are the reporters publicly asking Prabhupada about this. But later, when Prabhupada reached John Lennon's estate and he was comfortably there with the devotees, John Lennon and his wife, Yoko Ono, came to see Prabhupada. And they were having a very nice conversation, questions back and forth. And at the end of the conversation, Yoko Ono asked Prabhupada for a blessing. She said, could you please bless us that we can be married again in our next life? And Prabhupada explained to her that is not possible. Marriage is for this lifetime, and we cannot discuss what will happen in our next lifetime. So Prabhupada just cut that illusion completely. So here, Prabhupada's quoting from Manu Samhita, in this lifetime, according to Manu Samhita, there's no divorce. In happiness or distress, the husband and the wife remain together. Prabhupada went from the building to the gleaming white Rolls-Royce awaiting him outside, courtesy of John Lennon. Prabhupada entered the back seat and sat cross-legged. The limousine was equipped with darkened windows and a lavish interior, including a television. The devotees had become so confused in their excitement that none of them had thought to join Prabhupada, and the chauffeur whisked him away to Tittenhurst, so Prabhupada was alone in the car. Prabhupada sat silently, except for his occasionally audible chanting, as the chauffeur headed through the winding roads leading away from the airport. He was in England. His father, Gormohan, had never wanted him to come to England. Once an uncle had told Gormohan that his son should go to England and become a barrister, because during the colonial times in England, Calcutta was the capital of the English Empire in India. And educated young boys such as Srila Prabhupada, because he went to Scottish Church College, he would have had the opportunity to go to England and study there, become a barrister, that means an advocate, a lawyer, and make a lot of money. But Gormohan had said no. If his son went there, the meat eaters, drinkers, and sex mongers might influence him. But now, 70 years later, Prabhupada had indeed come to London, not to be influenced by the Englishmen, but to influence them. He had come to teach them what they had forgotten. So there are a few points in this. First of all, Srila Prabhupada, when he sent his disciples, they were in dhoti, kurta, shaved head with sika. They did not compromise. They decided that if they went as Vaishnavas, that would create a sensation. Who are these people? On the other hand, the disciples that had been sent by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, because they were trying to associate with the upper echelon, the lords and the ladies, the viceroys, like that, they decided to compromise. And they were suit boot. They grew their hair in, no more sika. They wore Western clothes. They went to special classes, because in England, everything is based on etiquette. Manners maketh a man. That is the proverb. You had to know how to do everything perfectly, and people would judge you according to your manners. And they learned how to eat with a knife and fork and spoon. The devotees didn't go that route. They did everything as Prabhupada had taught them. They did not compromise. And that was why when Srila Prabhupada sent his disciples, they were fully successful, because they presented exactly as Prabhupada had taught them, without compromise, without watering it down. Another point, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's vision was that his disciples would open hostels for students, and have them live in the hostels, and connected to the hostel would be a Vishnu temple, where they would study and learn to worship. Because the students, the Indian students that went to England to study, they did their studies, but they didn't have enough money for the fare to come back to India. So they were stranded in England. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati understood that. So he said these Indian students could come and live in our hostels, and take part that way in bhakti yoga. So the plan was different from what actually happened. That never happened. The hostels never happened. But what Prabhupada did was all these young boys and girls were joining the temple. They couldn't, they as soon as they got a place, they grew out of it, bigger and bigger and bigger, until finally George Harrison bought them what we have now, the Bhaktivedanta Manor, because so many hundreds of people were becoming devotees. They needed a big place. Oh, so this is a map. 37 acres outside of London in the countryside. It used to be the Cadbury estate, you know, our Cadbury chocolate that we have. Very, very beautiful. The Cadbury estate was designed by a horticulturist who collected trees and shrubs from all over the world. Anything that could grow in the miserable English climate, he planted there. So you had these magnificent trees, and you had stables. They had a mule. They had servants' quarters. 37 acres of beautiful forestry and farmlands, plus mansions. So this was the main house, called the White House, where John Lennon and Yoko Ono lived. And he was off to a good start. Did we skip a page? No. Did we read this one? Yes, next. And he was off to a good start under Krishna's special care. When he had had to live alone in New York City without any money, that had been Krishna's mercy. And now he was entering England in a chauffeured limousine, also Krishna's mercy. Accepting the ride as part of Krishna's plan, Prabhupada remained deeply fixed in his purpose of carrying out the order of his spiritual master, whatever circumstances awaited. So this is a picture of Prabhupada on one of his walks. It was September. It's quite chilly in England in September time. The winter is about to come. And Prabhupada used to, a description of hell, he would say, yes, this is hell, because the weather was so miserable, rainy, foggy, could hardly ever see the sun. See, Prabhupada's all bundled up. So this is a map of London, where Heathrow Airport is, and how far he had to travel. Little description here of the trip. As they turned onto Route 4, proceeding towards Slough is a part of the London suburbs, Prabhupada saw factories and warehouses, and then the flat countryside with orchards, fields, and grazing horses. The gray, chilly weather hinted of winter ahead. After about 20 minutes, Prabhupada reached the wealthy neighborhood of Ascot, and soon, appearing on the left, the high redwood fence surrounding the Lennon estate. Prabhupada had arrived before his disciples, but those who had remained at the manor excitedly received him and showed him to his room on the second floor of the servants' quarters. The small room was chilly and damp, with a low table for a desk and wall-to-wall carpeting made from pieces of rug taken from the other rooms. The adjoining room was bare and even smaller. That's where his servant would stay, Purushottam. Prabhupada sat down at his low desk. "Where is everyone?" he asked. As he leaned back and gazed out the window, he saw rain just beginning to fall. So here is Prabhupada with little Saraswati, the daughter born to Malati and Shamsundar. So she was a real star there. She would get a lot of attention, both from Prabhupada and anyone who saw her. Beautiful little girl who grew up in Krishna consciousness.
She must be a very good devotee now.
Excuse me? She's married and has children. She's a grihasta, and Malati regularly goes to visit her. She had a lot of association with Srila Prabhupada. When George, John, and Yoko dropped by after Prabhupada's lunch, Shamasundar invited them to come up and meet Prabhupada. George turned to John and asked, "Do you want to go up?" The bearded, bespectacled master of Tittenhurst, hair down to his shoulders, assented. Yoko was also curious. So up they all went to Prabhupada's little room. Smiling graciously from behind his desk, Prabhupada asked his guests to enter and be seated. Here were two of the most famous people in England, and Krishna wanted him to speak to them. Prabhupada removed his garland and handed it to Shamasundar, indicating that he should put it around George's neck. So there were the biggest musical group at that time, in the late 60s, were the Beatles. There were 4 Beatles. There was John Lennon, George Harrison, Paul McCartney, and Ringo Starr. And their music was so popular that one time George, he said, we're probably more popular than Jesus Christ. And the church heard that in America, and they felt that he had blasphemed Jesus Christ, so they didn't allow him to enter America for that reason. But they were super popular. And George had been looking for the devotees. We heard about this in previous chapters. And when Shamsundar finally made his appearance at the Apple Studios, he immediately started to take association from the devotees, invited them to where he lived, to meet his wife, and they would have kirtan together, and Jamuna and Malati and Janaki, they would cook beautiful feasts for them. It was a wonderful relationship that they had. So the two most, here it says the two most famous people in England, that was John Lennon and George Harrison. Yoko Ono, she was from Japan. She had been married previously 2 times before. Now she was married to John Lennon. She was also a singer. And now that they were married, they made music together. And they had very peculiar habits. Whenever they were invited to a program, they had a big bubble. And they would go into the bubble so no one could see them, and they would go to the programs in their bubble. They did a lot of unusual things, and they made a lot of music, and everyone was, they were the most popular singers, these Beatles at that time. But amongst the 4 of them, George Harrison was the most interested in Krishna consciousness. And when he wondered whether he should take initiation or not, Prabhupada said, well, you already have a spiritual name, Hari's son, the son of Hari. And it's better that you remain where you are because you can influence people better by your singing. And he did that. He introduced My Sweet Lord. Many, many of his songs are actually about Krishna, but he only revealed that to the devotees, because otherwise, like Here Comes the Sun, lots of his songs were about Krishna. But only if you went behind the scenes did you know that they were about Krishna. Thank you, said George. Hare Krishna. Prabhupada smiled. This is Krishna's blessing. Hare Krishna, George replied again. Yes, Prabhupada said, there is a verse in Bhagavad-Gita, Yad yad acharati shreshtas tad evetaro jana sayat pramanam kurute lokas tad anuvartate. The idea is that anything which is accepted by the leading persons, ordinary persons follow them. Yadyar acharati shrestha. Shrestha means leading persons. Acharati means act. Whatever leading persons act, people in general follow them. If the leading person says it is nice, then it is all right. The others also accept it. So by the grace of God, Krishna, you are leaders. Thousands of young men follow you. They like you. So if you give them something actually nice, the face of the world will change. So the translation of that sloka, whatever action a great man performs, common, common men follow. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. Bhagavad-Gita 3:21. So this is Prabhupada and George Harrison speaking together. Although George and John were about the same age as most of Prabhupada's disciples, Prabhupada considered them shresttas, respected leaders. You are also anxious to bring some peace in the world, Prabhupada continued. I have read sometimes your statement. You are anxious also. Everyone is. Like one of the songs is, Give Peace a Chance. They wanted peace in the world. Every saintly person should be anxious to bring peace in the world. But we must know the process. He explained the peace formula according to Bhagavad-Gita. Only those who recognize the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the proprietor of everything, the object of all sacrifices, and the friend of everyone can find peace. So that comes from Bhagavad Gita 5:29. Bhoktaram yagyatapasam sarva loka maheshwaram suridam sarva bhutanam gyatva mam shantim richati. A person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate the ultimate benefactor, and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. अपने आप आएगा? Okay. Prabhupada then told the two Beatles even more directly what he had already hinted at. They should learn Krishna consciousness and help teach it to the world. I request you to at least understand this philosophy to your best knowledge, he said. If you think it is nice, pick it up. You are also willing to give something to the world, so try this. You have read our books, this Bhagavad Gita as it is. John, I've read bits of the Bhagavad Gita. I don't know which version it was. There's so many different translations. Prabhupada, there are different translations. Therefore, I have given this edition, Bhagavad Gita as it is. So in 1968, the first edition printed by Macmillan was printed. This is the cover. It was highly abridged because when they finally printed the full, it was over 1,000 pages. And this one was most of the purports were taken out. The slokas were all there, but very, very abridged. Prabhupada had asked Hayagriva to bring it down to the page numbers that Macmillan was willing to print. And this was all we had until the full version was printed by Macmillan. Prabhupada explained that the material world is a place of misery. Nature is cruel. In America, President Kennedy was thought to be the most fortunate, happy man, honored throughout the world. But within a second, Prabhupada loudly snapped his fingers. He was finished. Temporary. Now what is his position? Where is he? If life is eternal, if the living entity is eternal, where he has gone, what he is doing, is he happy or is he distressed? He is born in America or China. Nobody can say, but it is a fact that, as living entity, he is eternal, he is existing. So President Kennedy was extremely popular in America, which is a capitalist country. And he was going on a caravan, a parade in America, in an open car, waving at all the people, the thousands of people who had come to see him. And one man who was a communist, the communists don't like capitalists, he, from a very great distance, he shot President Kennedy, and then in a second he was dead, right there in front of all the thousands of people. His life was finished. So because everyone knew about that, he gave President Kennedy as an example how no matter how famous, no matter how successful one may be, death is always there for everyone. And after death, no one knows where the person is going. That's not shown. So Prabhupada gave that example because everyone knew about President Kennedy's assassination. Prabhupada explained the transmigration of the soul. Then again he requested, try to understand it, and if it is nice, you take it up. You are after something very nice. Is my proposal unreasonable? The two Beatles glanced at one another but didn't answer. Prabhupada gave a soft, amused laugh. You are all intelligent boys. Try to understand it. Prabhupada spoke of the importance of music in the Vedas. The Samaveda, he said, is full of music. Followers of the Samaveda are always in music. Through musical vibration, they are approaching the Supreme. He then sang slowly 3 verses from Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is how the disciples were able to conquer England and the world by their music. Their music became so popular that the Beatles became attracted, and first they made the 45 one single version, then they made a whole album. If we have time, we'll see all of that. This is George Harrison when he would join with the devotees in their kirtans. Jamuna is leading the kirtan. So I put a little insert here about George Harrison, since he was the most helpful of all the Beatles. On November 29, 2001, George Harrison passed away at the age of 58. He's quite young. Following his passing, preparations were made for his funeral, which took place on December 6, 2001, at the Bhaktivedanta Manor in Hertfordshire, England. The Bhaktivedanta Manor is a Hare Krishna temple and served as the perfect setting for Harrison's farewell ceremony. The funeral proceedings adhered to Hindu traditions, reflecting Harrison's deep spiritual beliefs and affinity for Eastern philosophies. The ceremony was a private event attended by close family members, friends, and fellow musicians who had been a part of Harrison's life and career. During the funeral, Hindu rituals were performed, including chanting, prayers, and religious ceremonies. These rituals aimed to guide Harrison's soul on its journey to the afterlife, according to Hindu beliefs. The atmosphere was undoubtedly somber, with mourners reflecting on Harrison's life, his musical contributions, and his spiritual quest. Following the funeral service, George Harrison's body was cremated in accordance with Hindu customs. His ashes were then scattered in 2 significant rivers in India, the Ganges and Jamuna. The choice of these rivers holds immense spiritual significance in Hinduism, as they are considered holy and believed to cleanse the soul. So George Harrison went out of his way to come here to Vrindavan several times. He came, and I don't remember what decade it was, but he visited here. He also visited Mayapur while Prabhupada's Pushpa Samadhi was being constructed. So he loved the association of the devotees and had his memorial right at the Bhaktivedanta Manor with the devotees. So these are the 3 verses. Because it's 7 o'clock now, we won't read the verses. It's Srimad Bhagavatam 7.5, 30 through 32. So what I prepared today, because the time is now over, we're only about halfway done. We have so many more things to show you. We'll have to wait till next week. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna.